Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Yod Dalid. We began the topic of Semicha, Rabbinic Ordination. And so far we learned that you need 3 elders to come together in order to confer ordination on a future candidate. What does that mean? Well, they don't actually have to physically put their hands on the candidate, although it looks like Moshe does so for Yehoshua, but we learned that they don't have to do that physically. Rather, it means that they call the person Rabbi. You are now a master. Now, that's not simply the ability to read a law and teach people what it says. Anyone who can read properly can do that. Rather, it's specifically the authority to adjudicate cases of fines. If you have to find that this person owes fine, kefel, 4 and 5, all types of fines, one needs official semicha in order to be a judge in a case like that. We did not actually find a source that says that you need 3 judges because Moshe did it alone, but nevertheless, that is the halacha that we learned in the Braita here. And so that's where we're picking up. And we ask, Vechad la samich, is that true that you need 3 judges in order to ordain a rabbi, and 1 is not enough? But look at the following story. This is a very important story in and of itself. But the point of this story is that we're going to see Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba confers ordination on several other rabbis, and it looks like he's doing it alone. Amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav Beram, Zachur oto ha'ish le'tov, ve'Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba shemo she'ilmalehu nishtakechu dinei kenasot mi'Yisrael. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, we remember this man for good, and his name was Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, one of the greatest sages, right after the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash, before the Bar Kokhba revolt. And if it was not for him, the laws of fines would have been lost from the Jewish people. We interrupt and we ask, what do you mean? Nishtakechu nigrosinhu. What do you mean it would have been forgotten? We would learn them. We would memorize the laws and then we would know them. Why would it be forgotten if not for Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba? There were many sages who were still memorizing the oral law, so we would be able to memorize it and not forget it. Rather, we don't mean that the laws themselves would be forgotten. We would know the laws, but we would not be able to adjudicate the laws because there would be no more sages with semicha. And as we just said, you need semicha in order to be a judge in a case of fines. And if not for him, there would be no more ordained rabbis in Israel and no one that could be on a bet din for a matter that involves fines. Here's the story. Shepam achat gazra malchut harsha shemad al Yisrael shekol hasomech yehareg vekol hanismach yehareg ve'ir shesomchin ba techarev utchumin shesomchin bahen ye'akeru. One time, this seems to be during the Bar Kokhba revolt, the evil kingdom, that's the Romans, they declared a persecution against the Jewish people. And they said, anyone who confers ordination will be killed. Anyone who receives ordination will be killed. And a city in which they give someone ordination will destroy that city. And the boundary markers all around that city, wherever they do it, nearby, will be uprooted. And so now everybody will be scared to transfer semicha from one generation to the next. And if the Roman persecution would be successful, then there would be a whole generation of sages, of ordained rabbis that would die out and would not ordain a next generation of rabbis. And then that's it. In order to have an ordained rabbi, you need a chain all the way back to Moshe. And once the chain would be interrupted, then there would never again be ordained sages that would be able to adjudicate cases of fines. So this was a big problem because obviously everybody's scared. Even if you want to risk your own life and say, okay, me and this student will risk our lives and do some micha. If you do it in the city, then you are risking the lives of everybody in the city. And so, how you can't do that. Me'asa Yehuda ben Baba was very wise and brave. Halach v'yashab lo ben shenei harim gedolim uben sheteh ayarot gedolot uben shenei tichumei Shabbat uben usha lish far'am v'samach sham chamisha zikenim ve'elohen Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Yehuda v'Rabbi Shimon v'Rabbi Yosef v'Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Rav Avia mosif af Rabbi Nehemiah. So what did this Yehuda ben Baba do? He went between 2 great mountains and between 2 great cities, between 2 two boundaries of Shabbat. So between these two cities, Usha and Shepharam, since he was equidistant between the two, when the Romans came and they said, oh, we're going to destroy the city that you did it in and everything nearby, but it's equidistant between two, so the Romans aren't going to, hopefully not, they're not going to destroy both cities. That wasn't part of the decree. And so because it's equidistant, and then each city will say, no, the other one's just as close, so then the Romans would not be able to legally destroy either city. And between two boundary markers, between two mountains, it could be that the mountains would be a good place to be able to hide, so then they wouldn't be seen right away. So they went between these two places, and Yehuda ben Baba gave semicha there to 5 of the greatest sages that basically populate almost the entire Mishnah, and that's Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. And Avavia adds also Rabbi Nehemiah. These are all 4th generation Tanaim, and all happen to be students also of Rabbi Akiva. So that's interesting. Rabbi Akiva is going to come up in a second. Now, Kevan shehikiru oibehem bahem amar lehem banai rusu. Now the enemies discovered them, and so Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba told all the sages that he just gave semicha to, my sons, run away, quick, right? The Romans are coming, and if they catch us, then we're all going to die. I want you to run away. Amru lo, Rabbi, mate alecha. The student said, Rabbi, what about you? Why you have to save your life? Amar lehen, hareni mutar lifnehem ke'eben she'en la hofchim. He says, I'm sticking right here. I'm going to make myself like a stone that cannot be overturned. And I'll just stay here and I'll take the blame. And that way, that'll stop them from running after you, because they'll be dealing with me. So he's actually committed this act of great bravery, and gave up his own life in order to have continuity of semicha. So what an amazing story. Amru lo zazu misham ad shenasru bo shelosh meot lun chiyot shel barzel va'asauhu kichvara. And sure enough, the students ran away, and they were safe, and the Romans did not catch them. But the Roman soldiers, they went and they caught him there, and the Roman soldiers did not move from there until they had shot him with 300 iron spears, and the body of Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba was full of holes like a sieve. That's how angry they were, which is an amazing story. It shows that, what was the power of these Jews? They had no weapons, they had no military power, hardly anything, any leverage. So what was the big deal? Why would the Romans so intent on stopping semicha? It seems that the rabbis knew, that the Romans knew, that the rabbis knew that the power of the Jewish people would be through their sages, through their leadership, through the courts. If they had their own independent courts, that's their own legal system. And whatever the Romans could do to them, right, since they have their Torah and their laws that they will follow, and their judges who will be able to be judges in those law courts, if the Jewish people have that, then the Jewish people will be strong. And so Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba doing this simple act of giving semicha, that was such a strong protest against the Romans. They treated him like as if he was a general of some enemy army. Okay, so that's the story. What the point here is that Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, we brought this extraordinary story, not for the history itself, but rather for the halachic point that he gave semicha to 5 sages alone. He didn't do it with 2 other colleagues. So this seems to mean that you can give semicha alone. Then the answer is Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, acharini havu behadeh. No, in fact, there were 2 other sages that came along with Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. And no, we didn't mention them, but really there were 2 other people there. And the reason we didn't mention them is to give honor to Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. He was the greatest among the sages. He's the one that conceived of this whole idea. He's the one that gave his life for it. The other 2 that ran away, hopefully, and their lives were saved. So we want to remember and give honor to Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba, and now we ask a side question. Rabbi Meir, is it true that he was given semicha by Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba? We have a tradition from Rabbi Yochanan that says anyone who says that Rabbi Meir did not get semicha from Rabbi Akiva is mistaken. So it must be Rabbi Meir got from Rabbi Akiva, and not that he got semicha from Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. So how do we resolve this? And the answer is Semache Rabbi Akiva velo kibelu Semache Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba vekibelu. It's true, Rabbi Akiva at first gave Rabbi Meir semicha when Rabbi Meir was young, but the community did not yet accept him. And then later on, when he was older, then Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba gave Rabbi Meir semicha again, and this time the community accepted it. From which we learn another important idea. In order to be a rabbi, it's not sufficient just to get the official title from of semicha from three elders. It also has to be accepted by the community. So you need both factors, and Rabbi Meir at first only had one until he got both. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, en semicha bechosal haaretz. Now Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says that there is no official ordination outside the land of Israel. This is something that's under the authority of the Nasi. It has to be done in Israel. Now we ask, Mai en semicha ilema de la daini dine kenasot kelal b'chutz haaretz. Now what does it mean en semicha? If you think that means that no judge, let's say they got semicha in Israel and now they move outside of Israel, they go visit outside of Israel, does that mean that they cannot adjudicate cases of fines outside of Israel? Is that what you mean? En semicha? That you can't use semicha outside the land of Israel? But that's not true. V'hatenan, we learn in Mishnah in Masechet Makot, Sanhedrin noheget ben ba'aretz uben b'chutz haaretz. The Sanhedrin can function in Israel and outside of Israel. The Sanhedrin, these are 71 of the greatest sages, all have semicha, and if they happen to go be on a trip outside of Israel and they get together and they adjudicate a case there, it's valid. So surely one can judge cases outside of Israel. That's not what it means. Rather, what it means is that you cannot confer ordination on a potential candidate outside the land of Israel. You only can go to get ordination in the land of Israel. By the way, this explains the difference between the titles. In Eretz Yisrael, they use the title Rabbi. That's the full official title of a rabbi. And so the Tanaim, like Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Akiva, they have the title Rabbi. And also the Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Abhu, and so Rabbi Zerah, they have the title Rabbi. Outside the land of Israel, we just say Rav, which is still means a master, but it's a lower level. It's not the official semicha. So this is the source of that, and that's also, by the way, very useful. If you see Rav something, you know it's a Amorah from Bavel. If you see the B, then it could be either a Tana or an Amorah, but it has to be from Eretz Yisrael. Okay, good. Now we want to clarify this rule that there's no semicha outside the land of Israel. Pishita somchin bechusal haaretz v'nismachin ba'aretz ha'amrinan dela. So it's obvious that if the people giving ordination are outside the land of Israel, and let's say they're doing it remotely, they're doing it by a letter, and they're going to give semicha, and the candidate is in the land of Israel, obviously that will not work. Obviously the judges giving semicha have to be in Israel. But let's say the other way around. Ela sumchin ba'aretz v'nismachin bechusal haaretz mai. What if the judges giving semicha are in the land of Israel, but the candidates are not? Since they're in Israel, so that they have authority, maybe they can send a messenger and give some semicha even if they are outside the land of Israel. Does that work? Let's see. Tashema. De Rabbi Yochanan hava mista'ed ale de Rav Shemen bar Abba de la hava gabayhu de lismeche. So apparently it does not work, because there's a story about Rabbi Yochanan. He really wanted to give semicha to Rav Shemen bar Abba, but Rav Shemen bar Abba was not with Rabbi Yochanan in Eretz Yisrael. He was out in Bavel, and he was never able to come into Eretz Yisrael in order to get semicha, and so he never ordained him. So you see here, he is called Rav. It's a lower level title, but now not official enough that he could adjudicate fines. So you see that number one, you see that you can give semicha from a distance. If everybody's in Eretz Yisrael, that's okay. You could do it with a messenger, but everybody has to be in Eretz Yisrael. That's one story. Another story: Rabbi Shimon ben Zerud v'chad de'imei umano Rabbi Yonatan ben Achmai. Hamri la Rabbi Yonatan ben Achmai v'chad de'imei umano Rabbi Shimon ben Zerud. This is a story about these two rabbis, and we're not sure who the main one was and who the other one who was accompanying him, but one way or another, one of the rabbis is Rabbi Shimon ben Zerud, and someone was with him who was Bir Natan, and the other say, no, it was Bir Natan ben Achmai, he was the main rabbi, and together with him was Rabbi Shimon ben Zerud. Anyway, Chad havagabayhu samchuhu, v'chad la havagabayhu la samchuhu. One of them was together with the sages in Israel, and they were able to give him semicha, but the other one was not in Eretz Yisrael, and so the sages in Israel were not able to give him semicha. And so again here we see that when the candidate needs to be in Israel to get semicha. Rabbi Chanina v'Rabbi Hoshaya hava ka mishtaked Rabbi Yochanan de mismechinhu la hava mistaya'a miletaha hava ka mistaer tuba amudule la nistaer mod the anan midebet ali katena. And now, since we talked about a couple of stories about people getting semicha or trying to be given semicha, here's another story in that vein. Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Hoshaya, they were candidates to become rabbis, and Rabbi Yochanan, he was always trying to give them ordination, but something always happened. There was some kind of problem, and he was not able to. And Rabbi Yochanan was really upset about that because they were worthy to be rabbis, but he just they weren't in town. They couldn't come in for whatever reason. But finally, after many attempts, the candidates said, Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Hoshaya said, Master Rabbi Yochanan, don't be distressed about it. We are Kohanim from the house of Eli. And apparently he was about to see that part of the curse against the sons of Eli, who were all corrupt, is that they will never get semicha from their descendants will not become rabbis. Interesting, they are called Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi Hoshaya. So somehow they got the title anyway, but anyway, not from Rabbi Yochanan at least. Amar Rabbi Shemuel bar Nachman Amar Rabbi Yonatan Minayin she'en nismachin lebet Eli, and this is the source of our tradition from Rabbi Yonatan, who said, how do we know that you cannot get semicha if you're from the house of Eli? Shene'emar, lo yeh zaken bebetecha kol hamim. There will not be an elder in your house for all time. An elder, zaken, means a rabbi. My zaken, ilem zaken mamash. Now zaken can also mean an old person, not necessarily an ordained person. But if you think that it means an old person, that all the people from the house of Eli will die young, but actually we already know that from the next pasuk right after that, Vakatib, Kol Mabit Betecha Yamutu Anashim. All those raised in the house of Eli will die as young men, as Anashim, and not won't reach an age when they are elders. So from this pasuk, we already know that the people from the house of Eli will not live to an old age. So therefore, what does it mean? That they will not be a zaken, ela semicha. It means that they will not receive semicha. It says, Rabbi Yochanan, we know you tried, but it's not your fault, right? All these things keep happening and stopping in the way. Because of this curse of the house of Eli. Rabbi Zera hava mitamar lemismeche. Rabbi Zera, he was certainly worthy of getting semicha, but he would hide himself. He didn't want to get semicha. He didn't want to bring attention to himself. Tamar Rabbi Elazar leolam heve kabel vekayam. And he was following the advice of Rabbi Elazar that said, always be obscure and remain alive. Don't bring yourself to prominence, right? Who gets assassinated? Only famous people. They are the target of attacks, the target of the government wants to take them, or other bad actors. Just stay low, be anonymous, nobody knows who you are, and then you'll live long. And so he was following that advice. Kevan dishma'ah dahad amar Rabbi Elazar en adam ole ligdula elim ken mochalin lo al kol avonotav imsile anafsheh. But then he heard another teaching that Rabbi Elazar said, that a person, when he rises to power, all his sins are forgiven. So he sees actually, so he saw actually, maybe there is a reason to allow oneself to get semicha, and so he made himself presentable. He applied to get semicha. He filled out the form, and so he got semicha. Ki semachu Rabbi Zera sharu lehachi la kechal vela sherak vela pirkus ve'yalat chen. When Rabbi Zera did get a semicha, sure enough, he did draw attention. So I guess maybe he had a reason for all that time to lay low. He was very beautiful. And they sang to him when he got semicha the same song that we sing to a bride at her wedding. And we say, she doesn't need blue eyeshadow. She doesn't need rouge on her face. No hair dye. And she still radiates grace, right? Even just a natural look is so beautiful. Okay, so that's amazing that they're saying this not about a bride, but about this rabbi. I think you can say that this is an allegory to his knowledge that was just so bright and enlightening. Or he was also very handsome. Whatever, he had a certain charisma, a certain stature that everybody just looked at him and looked up to him. Ki semachu l'Rabbi Ameh l'Rabbi Aseh sharu lehu hachi kol min den v'kol min den semuchu lana. And a similar story about two other rabbis, Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh. When they got semicha, the people sang to them, anyone like these two, they should be ordained, right? These are ideal candidates. They were full of knowledge and knew what they were doing. La tismechu lana la misarmitin vela misarmisin v'amri la mehamisin vela meturmisin. Then they continued the song and they said, but do not give semicha to those that are among the rags or distorters, or some say among robbers or tramplers. In other words, when you're going to give semicha, you should look at the ideal candidates like Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh, who are very fine and honest and upright people, have integrity and knowledge, right? They should check all those boxes. But if it's someone who is not, they're a robber, a distorter, untrustworthy person, low life, anyone like that, you should not give them semicha. Even maybe you're impressed that they have a certain area of knowledge that's not sufficient. They have to have all of these good qualities that Rabbi Ameh and Rabbi Aseh had. Rabbi Abu ki hava ateh me metibta lebe kesar nafki matron nita debe kesar meshariyan le rabba de Ameh me madbarna de umate bosina din hora berich matiach de lishlam. Since we're talking about singing to sages on the day of their ordination, now we're talking about another sage, Rabbi Abu, that when he would come from the yeshiva to meet the emperor, the Roman emperor, he was a liaison, and he could speak to the emperor if needed on behalf of the Jewish community. And he was so impressive and so handsome and so charismatic that the women of the emperor's house would go out and they would sing before him, "O great one of his people, leader of his nation, illuminating candle, may your arrival be blessed in peace." That's beautiful that he got honor when he came to visit the emperor. All right, that concludes the section about ordination of rabbis. And now we get to the next part of the Mishnah that says Arifat Aigla Bishlosha. If there's a murder mystery and then we can't find who did it, so we bring a heifer and we break its neck, and that whole ceremony has to be done in front of 3 judges. Rabbi Yehuda says it has to be 5 judges. So let's learn the source for this. Tanu Rabbanan. ויעשו זקניך ושופטיך, זקניך שניים, שופטיך שניים, ואין בית דין שקול, מוסיפין עליהן עוד אחד, הרי כאן 5. So the pasuk says that the elders and the judges will go out. So let's see, zikenecha, that's a plural, that means 2. Shofetecha, judges, that's also plural, so that refers to another 2. So you need at least 4 judges, and you can't have an even number. So we're going to have to add 1, and that will make 5, and that's the source for Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon, however, Rabbi Shimon omer zikenecha shenayim ve'en bet din shakul mosifin alehem od echad hare kan shelosha. He only focuses on one word, the word zikenecha, which is plural, and that means 2, and you can't have an even number, so you're going to add 1 more, and then you get 3. So obviously we're going to ask Rabbi Shimon, why'd you only pick on the word zikenecha? What about the word v'shofetecha? Rabbi Shimon, hi, shofetecha ma'i abid le. So what is he going to do with the word shoftecha? What did we learn from there? Oh, from this word shoftecha, we learned that it has to be the unique ones, meaning people from the Sanhedrin. You can't just get any judges to do a glarufa. It has to be members of the great Sanhedrin of 71. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, I don't need the word v'shoftecha for for that, I can learn it from the chaf on zikenecha. See, if you just had zikneh, that's already plural. So I already know 2 judges from there. And zikenecha, your judges, means the ones that are very important to you, the important ones. And so he just learns it from the chaf. And that leaves shoftecha left over to learn that you need 5 judges. But Rabbi Shimon, what does he do with that chaf? He says, no, I need that chaf for something else. If you only had zikneh, I wouldn't know that you need 2 top judges. If you had zikneh by itself, I would say any regular judges, from the lowest level judge. And then by adding the chaf, now I know it has to be mid-level judges that are from a court of 23. So if I only had zikenecha, I would know from the small court, which is 23. So I need the words for shoftecha plus the chaf. Yes, I agree, I need the chaf. That's to take me from the lowest level to middle level. I need the shoftecha to take me from the middle level to the highest level to a member of the Sanhedrin. Rabbi Yehuda, where is he going to learn that from? Because he also needs to learn 2 levels, and he can't learn both levels from the extra chaf. And he can answer, Gamar zikneh mi v'samechu zikneh ha'eda et yedehem. He can learn a gezerah shava from the word zikneh to the word zikneh from above when it says that the members of the Sanhedrin, if the Sanhedrin makes a mistake in ruling, then they put their hands on top of the korban hatat. And we learned over there that that has to be members of the Sanhedrin. So that's how we know you need members of the Sanhedrin Hagadol. Just like over there you need the highest level, so too here you need the highest level elders. So he already knows it from a gezerah shava, and therefore for the biyuda v'shofetecha is extra to say that you need 5 judges. We can ask about that. Wait a second. Once you open up a channel of a gezerah shava, you can learn everything from there. You can even learn the number of judges, and then you wouldn't need any of the other things, any of the other words. You could have just a gezerah shava. And so we abandon that and we say zekenecha ve'shofetecha lamali. Right? So why, if you have a gezerah shava, why would you need both of these words, zekenecha and ve'shofetecha? So rather, it's not from a gezerah shava. Rabbi Yehuda learns it instead from the following: elavav ve'shofetecha leminyana. He learns from the extra vav. It could have said just zekenecha shofetecha. So from the fact that it could have said zikneh. So if the extra chaf here, we'll learn mid-level. From the word shoftecha, we will learn highest level. From the letter vav, we learn 2 judges. From zikneh, we learn 2 judges. And so now we learn it has to be 4 judges, can't be even. That makes 5 judges. So, 5 judges have to be from the highest level, because the highest level is from the chaf, is mid-level. Shoftecha is the highest level. And so that's how Rabbi Yehuda can learn everything, even without the gezerah shava. Now, Rabbi Shimon, vav la darish. Rabbi Shimon, why don't you agree with that? He says, no, a vav is just there because you need to connect the words. You can't make a whole derasha just from the letter vav. Now, hold on. If every time you have a verb that's plural, you're going to say, oh, we need 2 judges for that, then look at the continuation. It says, they will go out and they will judge. So then you're going to add another 2 and another 2. So Rabbi Yehuda, that's going to add to the 5 that you already said you need. You're going to add 2 more and 2 more. Now you're going to need 9. And according to Rabbi Shimon, before he said you need 3, but now we have 2 more plural verbs. Now you're going to make it 7. But that's crazy. No, we need these verbs to teach us something else. V'yatzu is not telling us that you need 2 more judges, but rather it's telling us that you need the judges themselves to go out to the site. They can't just send messengers and say, let us know what you find there. The judges themselves have to go to the site of the murder. Umadedu shafilu nimsa be'alir la'ir sarich la'asok b'medida. And they have to judge which is the city that is closest to. And we learn from the word madedu that even if it's clear, you could just eyeball it and you see, right, it's very close to the city, it's much farther away from the other cities. Nevertheless, part of the official procedure is you have to go and actually take a rope and measure it so that you can make an official measurement that, yes, the body is closest to this city. And so that's what we learn from those two verbs. We don't learn from them that you need an extra 2 judges. Continuing on the theme of Egla Arufa, we're going to see now a different opinion altogether. Matnitin delaki haitana detanya. Our Mishnah that says either 3 or 5 judges is certainly not the same as the following Baraita that's going to say you need perhaps the entire Sanhedrin and the Kohen Gadol and the king all to come out to solve one murder mystery. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, v'yaseu zekenecha v'shofetecha. Zekenecha zo Sanhedrin, v'shofetecha ze melech v'kohen gadol. Melech tichtib, melech b'mishpat yamid aretz. Kohen gadol tichtib, ubata el hakohanim halviyim ve'el hashofet. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, from the same phrase that we learned before, 3 or 5 judges, he says, no, zekenecha, that word by itself means the Sanhedrin. We'll see if that means the whole Sanhedrin or only some of them. And the word shoftecha, in plural, is referring to 2 people, the king and the Kohen Gadol. How do you know that the king is connected to shofet? Because the pasuk says that a king will, through his justice, establishes the land. So it connects the king and mishpat. And the Kohen Gadol is also connected because it says, if you don't know a law in your local court, then you should come to the Levitical priests and to the judge. So this, and he says, this is referring to the Kohen Gadol. So therefore you need both of these people to come out to the body to do the measurement to the closest city. Question 2, regarding this opinion, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, is he arguing with the other sages in one matter or in 2 matters? So he's certainly arguing regarding the king and the Kohen Gadol that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says they have to come. The sages before that did not say that. So he's certainly arguing on one thing. But when he says that you need zekenecha, that's the Sanhedrin, there he agrees either with Rabbi Yehuda that you need 5 or with Rabbi Shimon that you need 3 judges. So he agrees on that point. That's one possibility. Or maybe he disagrees regarding this also, that when he says Sanhedrin, it means you need all 71 members. Imagine that. One guy that's murdered and is not caught, we have to get the whole Sanhedrin, the king, the Kohen Gadol, everybody to come out and show their concern about it and try to solve it. Amar Rav Yosef Tashema. We're going to see 2 different opinions, both possibilities. Rav Yosef says we can learn it from the following. מסען הבית פגע והמרא עליהן יכול תהא המראתו המראה תלמוד אומר וקמת ועלית אל המקום מלמד שהמקום גורם. So Rav Yosef is quoting a baraita that's talking about zaken mamre. This is a rebellious elder, an elder who comes to the Sanhedrin, the Hagadol, and they tell him a halacha. The halacha is A. He goes back to his city and he teaches against the Sanhedrin Hagadol. He says, no, the halacha is B. He gets the death penalty because you can't have this. You have a Supreme Court and you have to follow the authority of the Supreme Court. Otherwise, the entire judicial system will fall. Now, here's the question. The Torah says he has to go v'kamta ve'alita. He has to go to the place that Hashem will choose, meaning to Harabayit. What if the Sanhedrin happens to be on a field trip? They're doing something in an area close by, like Bet Pageh. It's an area, a village near Jerusalem, and he happens to be there. And he asks the Sanhedrin a question, and they tell him this is the halacha, and then he goes against them. Should we assume that would also be a rebellion, and he would get the death penalty? No, that's why the pasuk says that if he goes to the place Hashem will choose, it's only if he goes there and the Betin and the Sanhedrin on Harabayit tell him this is the halacha and he goes against it, then he gets the death penalty. But if not, then he does not get the death penalty. Okay, this is not the proof yet. We're going to build on it. The nafu kama. Now, first question we have to clarify. Rav Yosef is clarifying. Rav Yosef is going to end up proving that everyone has to go from the Sanhedrin. Everybody's going, and so he's going to require everybody to go to measure the corpse. But here's how he is proving it. The nafu kama. When the Bet Din, the Sanhedrin goes to another place like Bet Pageh, how many are going? Everyone or some people? If only some of them came out, then why would you even think that this rebellious person would get the death penalty? Maybe he's disagreeing with the 10 people who came out, but the other 61 people who are still back in Jerusalem agree with them. So there would be no reason to call him a rebellious elder if most of the Sanhedrin is still in Jerusalem. It wouldn't make any sense. He didn't go against them. He only went against the few people that went out on this trip. Rather, the only way you can even think that he would be a Zaken Mamre and they would get the death penalty is if the entire Sanhedrin went out and they all voted and told him this is the halacha and he went against it. Okay, so now that we established that everybody's leaving the Mai, now, are they going just for fun, just for a fun trip, something that they don't have to do? It's just an optional matter? No. Can they leave for an optional matter? The answer is that they cannot. Then we quote a pasuk from Shir Hashirim that allegorically is describing the Sanhedrin. It says, "Your navel is like a round goblet, wherein no blended wine is lacking." Now, blended wine is generally a 1/3, 2/3 mixture between wine and water. And so when it says it shall not be lacking, that means that to have a quorum in the Sanhedrin, you need 2/3 to be there. If it's less than 2/3, then the Sanhedrin is null and void, and they actually have to look around. If a whole bunch of people went out, they went to the bathroom or to get something to eat, you have to look around. And if you're going to leave, and now that'll be less than 2/3, you can't leave. You have to wait till someone comes back. So we learn from this that our entire Sanhedrin is not allowed to leave just for an optional matter. Rather, it must be that they're leaving for a mitzvah. That's why they're allowed to move out of their chambers on Har HaBayit. Now, what is the matter of mitzvah that they're going for? Lav lemedidat egla v'Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov hidamar kule Sanhedrin bainan. So this caps off Rav Yosef's proof. Surely, what did they go mitzvah they're going for? They must be going to measure a murder mystery. And this is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, who says that the whole Sanhedrin, in fact, goes to do the measurement. So that's Rav Yosef's proof that you need the Kohen, the king, Kohen Gadol, the king, and the whole Sanhedrin. Amar l'Abaye lo kegon she'asu losif al ha'ir v'al azarot keditnan en mosifin al ha'ir v'al azarot ele bebetin shel shiv'im ve'echad. Abaye says, no, I disagree. Abaye actually agrees with most of the proof that if the Bet Din HaGadol, the Sanhedrin, leaves from Jerusalem to go somewhere, they can only leave for a matter of a mitzvah. But the mitzvah does not necessarily have to be in order to measure for a gla arufa. Rather, it could be that they are leaving to go to add to the borders of the city of Jerusalem or to the temple courtyard. As our Mishnah taught, we do not add to the city of Jerusalem or to the courtyards unless you have the Sanhedrin of 71. So they're going for that mitzvah. And that's the case where some rebellious elder came and asked them a question while they were out of their official chambers, and that's where the Beraita says, no, but he wouldn't get the death penalty for that. But we cannot prove from here that the whole Sanhedrin has to leave because of Egla Rufa. So therefore, according to Abaye, yes, you need a king and Kohen Gadol, but you don't need the whole Sanhedrin, only 3 or 5 members. Tanya kevated Rav Yosef. We have a Beraita that supports Rav Yosef that the entire Sanhedrin has to go to measure the body. Misa'an abet pageh v'imra alehen kegon she'asul medidat egla losif ala ir ve'ala azarot yachol shetem ra'ato hamra tamud omar ve'kamta ve'alita el hamakom melamed she'hamakom gorem. This Beraita teaches that if a rebellious elder comes and finds finds the Sanhedrin that they are in a nearby village from Jerusalem called Bet Pageh, and then he hears what they have to say, and he goes back to his city, and he issues a ruling against the Sanhedrin. Now it gives an example. Why would the Sanhedrin not be on the Temple Mount? Why would they be in a different place? For example, if they had to go and measure for a glarufa, or to add to the borders of the city of Jerusalem, or to the temple courtyards. In such a case, were they left for any of these three reasons? And he asked them a question there. Would his rebellion be considered a rebellion, and he would get the death penalty? No, that's why the pasuk says only if he goes to the place, meaning that the place is what determines the authority of the Sanhedrin and their ability to give death penalty to someone who goes against them when they issue a ruling. And so from this triad here of examples in this expanded form of the Baraita, we have a proof for Rav Yosef. We go on to the next part of the Mishnah that says, if you have fourth year produce of a tree, the first 3 years is orla, you have to just destroy anything that grows. But the fourth year, the owner of the tree can eat it in Jerusalem. The same as Maaser Sheni, that on years when he brings Maaser Sheni, he has to take the fruit to Jerusalem, and then he can eat it or share it or do whatever he wants with it. Now, if it's too much to carry, he can redeem it for money. And so that's the question. If you have some item that has no market value, if it has a regular market value, just wheat, so then you redeem it for that much. But if it's something that doesn't have a market value, then you need 3 judges to assess, okay, this item that you have to eat in Jerusalem, okay, you can't carry it, it's worth $100. Redeem it for $100, take the $100 and eat it and buy food in Jerusalem. What is that? What does that mean? What is second tithes? That whose monetary amount is not known. Examples would be fruit that decomposed. You have fruit, that's Maaser Sheni, so you can't eat it here. And then by the time you got around to redeeming it, now it got rotten, so it's worth less. But how much? There's no marketplace for rotten fruit. Or wine that had developed a film, so it's not totally rotten fruit or totally bad wine, but it's not as good because it started to get some bacteria on top. Or coins that rusted. If it's a regular coin, you know exactly how much it is. It says, but if it started rusting, it's worth less, but how much less? So those are examples. Tanur Banan. Maaser Sheni she'en damav yidu'in podin oto b'shlosha lakochot, aval lo b'shlosha she'en lakochot. Baraita says that when you have this type of Maaser Sheni and it's not something that has a clear market value, then you have to redeem it in front of 3 buyers, but not just 3 regular people who are not buyers. You need people who are experts, well-versed in buying and selling, because then they can determine the market, what the value would be of something. And they don't all have to be Jewish. If one of them is not Jewish, that's okay. If he's a regular merchant, he'll know what the value is. And even if one is the owner himself, that's also okay if one of the 3. So you need these 3 people so that they can discuss with each other to determine how much the item is worth. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks, what if you have 3 people? They're all, they're experts, but they all are partners in the same business. So that, let's say they would buy it, whatever they're spending or whatever they're getting is all going into one shared bank account. Is that sufficient? Is that okay? Is it just they need 3 minds, and as long as there's 3 people, they get all the opinions? Or do they have to be 3 independent 3 people that are financially independent from each other, kind of like so they could bid against each other? Mahu tashema ish ushted nashav podin maaser sheni she'en damav yidu'in. We have a baraita that says that a man and his 2 wives, he has 2 wives who are merchants, and so they know what they're doing. They can determine the value for redeeming Maaser Sheni that has no clear amount. And so we assume, since it's a man and his 2 wives, that they all share a common bank account, and yet, you can do it. So the point is, we just need 3 human beings who know something about buying and selling, even if they're all equal partners and sharing the same bank account. So isn't that a good proof? Not necessarily. Could be like Rav Papa and his wife. He married the daughter of Abba Sura, and they had separate finances. Guess they were each independent, had independent properties, independent wealth, and they didn't mix them up. They didn't mix them into one bank account. And so maybe this man who had these two wives, maybe he and each of his wives has had their properties separate, and that's why it's allowed. So we don't necessarily have a proof from here. The next section of the Mishnah said, "Ha'hekdeshot bishlosha." If someone consecrates some item and then wants to take it back, so he has to redeem it. But you have to evaluate how much is the thing that you consecrated worth, what is the amount, and then you pay that amount and you can redeem the item. In order to make that evaluation, the Mishnah says you need 3 judges. Matnitin delaki haitana detanya Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov omer afilu sinora shel hekdesh siricha asara bnei adam liftota. Our Mishnah is not the same as the opinion of the Braita, where Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov again says that even if you consecrate a little fork, a fork that's used for spinning, and someone makes that consecrated, now you want to redeem it, you need 10 judges in order to evaluate how much it is in order to redeem it. So not just for land or for arachin of people, or for animals, even for a little item, you need 10 people against the Mishnah that says you only need 3. Amar le Rav Papa le Abaye Bishlamar le Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov damar ki Shmuel damar Shmuel 10 kohanim ketuvim b'parasha el Rabbanan shelosha mina lehu. Rav Papa tells Abaye, I understand the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov because he is following the opinion of Shmuel. Actually, the other way around. This is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is a Tana, but his opinion is explained by Shmuel, because Shmuel says in Vayikra chapter 27, the last chapter in Vayikra, where it talks about all these kinds of donations, it says the word HaKohen 10 times. Let's look at that inside. It's divided into 3 sections. The first section is about arachin. That means if someone if someone donates their own value or someone else's value, there's a fixed amount. It doesn't matter if they're weak or strong. It goes by age and gender. And then it says here, lifnei hakohen, hakohen, hakohen. So it says the word hakohen 3 times when it comes to evaluations of human beings. The next section is regarding animals, non-kosher animals, and here in this section it also says if you donate that, and so on. So you redeem it. It says hakohen, 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 ha'irich hakohen, ota. They will make the evaluation, and so it says the word kohen here 3 times. And then the final section of the chapter is about donating a house or land. And in this section, it says HaKohen 4 times. So that would be here in Pasuk 14, it says HaKohen twice. And then here, a 3rd time. And then we're not counting La Kohen. Instead, we go to this one, HaKohen 4 times. So in summary, it's 3, 3, 4. The first section is about human beings, then about animals. Animals will cover the general category of movable items as 3 times, and then land 4 times. So human beings 3 times, movable items 3 times, and then land 4 times. 3 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. So that's why that's how Shmuel explained that the way that you get to 10. But according to Rabbanan of the Mishnah that says only 3 judges, what's their derivation? So maybe you'll say, because regarding movable items, just in that middle section, it says HaKohen 3 times. And so from that, I will learn that for movable items, like a spinning fork or like animals, you only need 3 judges. That's their proof. In that case, you're going by the number of times it says HaKohen in each section. Then for land, it should be sufficient to have 4 judges, because it says the word HaKohen only 4 times. times in that last paragraph. And if you say, yes, indeed, for land, you need 4 judges, and that would be sufficient, but that can't be, because our Mishnah says that when it comes to the redemption of land, you need 9 judges plus 1 Kohen. You actually need 10. So it can't just be that you follow what's in that, only in that paragraph. Elamai de mashlemi behu asara. So maybe you'll say like this. You keep counting, you count up. If you have the first section of arachin, of human beings, there you need 3 judges, right? Okay, good, because it only says 3 up until there. The next paragraph, you add what came, the number of Kohanim, the number of times it says the word Kohen in the previous, plus the next one. And then in the final paragraph, you add, it's cumulative, you add everything that was until there, plus everything in that paragraph. And that explains why for land, you have to include the 6 times it says HaKohen before, plus the 4 that times it says HaKohen with regard to land. And that's why it's a total of 10. Well, that would work for that example of land. However, you run into a different problem. For movable items like animals, well, there, if you're being cumulative, you have to include the first 3 regarding arachin of human beings, and then the next set of 3 times that it says HaKohen regarding animals, and then you will need 6. But that's not, nobody says you need 6. Either it's 10 or 3. And so this is indeed a difficulty. We don't have a good source for Rabbanan who say that you only need 3 for movable items. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.